I'm here with Dr. Marcus Bitetto and my brother Mustafa, a.k.a. Is it all right if I mention
my government name?
your
Sure.
government name?
My name is Nathan Nathaniel Davis.
The government name, all
That's
right.
my government name. My Muslim name is Abdullah Mustafa Jihad Muhammad.
All right, what does that mean?
Abdullah means God's servant, God's slave. Mustafa means one who is chosen. Jihad means spiritual warfare that each and every individual fights from within inside themselves with.
Say that again, man, because that's a little bit heavy. Come on, man.
Abdullah Mustafa Jihad Muhammad is my Muslim name. My government name is Nathan Nathaniel Davis. I am Mustafa. Abdullah means God's servant, God's slave. Mustafa means one who is chosen. Jihad means the spiritual warfare that each and every individual fights with inside themselves with. And Muhammad means one who is worthy to be praised.
All right. Did you choose those names or someone gave it to you?
No, those names were chosen for me because of my character and my personality.
Who gave it to you?
Imam.
The imam of your...
Of Islam.
All right, okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And a little brief comment from our Dr. Bitetto. Dr. Bitetto, you're on.
Okay. Well, I have numerous names, some of them mentionable, some of them not mentionable, depending upon who you ask.
Well, give us both. Player.
My name that my parents gave me is Marco Antonio Vincenzo Bitetto. Marco from the Roman god of war, Antonio from the Latin word meaning striving for excellence, Vincenzo means the one who conquers, and Bitetto meaning the two-headed one. So my name in actuality means the two-headed god of war that strives for excellence and conquers.
And we're going to have this on paper, but identifying the names also, I'm assuming, gives you the spirit of what you're doing in Islam. Okay? I don't know the origin of John, except it's John, given, and I could give the background on John the Baptist or Pope John or whatever. Go ahead.
John actually comes from Giovanni. Giovanni is derived from jovenal, meaning youth. The youthful one. That's what.
What language are you talking about?
Latin.
So John comes from Latin, Giovanni, which means youth.
And Giovanni comes from joven.
Mine is still youthful.
Youth.
All right now. All right now. Our last session was at Marco's house. What would you like to see happen with this document? And what are your goals and ambitions for this meeting and for the future?
For this meeting is to actually have the story told of the purpose and a bit of the background of myself and how it fits into the history of things.
Yes, the history of yourself and what?
How it fits into the history of things in terms of the struggles of the disabled community.
Mm-hmm. So could I rephrase that and say that the reason I said that because imagine who's going to be listening to this tape. We don't want nothing that's unclear, So as he speaks or anybody speaks, clarify what we're talking about. If you were sitting in front of a funding source to continue what you want done in behalf of this targeted group, which is the disabled, the so and so and so and so and so. Who would be the first person you would want to be able to hear this recording?
The first person I would want to hear and see the recording are the possible funders that are from non-academia, meaning those that don't come from the establishment. Because
Give me an example of 3 when you say non-academia.
For example, you have that you work with churches to help with the tutoring of the GED, and the churches funded and started a charter school for the children.
Yeah, over at Canaan Baptist Church, they established the first charter school in New York City. But
Correct.
now we're talking about a charter school for adults.
Okay, so we would need to bring it to the people that basically are able to assist, albeit maybe at the level of $1 per person, that could actually start the process. Then we would have to kick it up a notch to go after possibly foundation sources, where at that point it has to be at a very high level, because I would be judged by a committee of PhDs.
Could you establish a list of people that you were talking about that you would like for it to be going to? Just a list.
With some research, I could do that. I have to go down possibly with an assistant and go through the collection at the Foundation Center.
Okay, that's downtown on Lower East. We talk about funding, one thing. Mobilization and organizing is another thing. What would make the nonprofit organization, specifically spiritually, faith-based, if you will, want to bring this into their community?
What might make it viable to bring into the community is
Why should they support what you're talking about?
Okay. In Christendom, there's the proverb of the Good Samaritan. And in Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, there's the giving of, I believe it's called tithes or zakat.
Zakat, charity.
Correct. So between those two, if it's presented as a possible solution that others can actually actively participate in, that is a possible way to start funding.
Okay. Would you say that an organization whose goal is to give back to the community in terms of art, community development, and education would be a focus group?
That
A project and a program that was established by a friend of mine years ago. And basically, Linyac, spelled L-I-N-Y-A-C, is a takeoff and a twist used in the Creole dialect in New Orleans. And it's a French spelling derived from New World Spanish, La Napa, the gift, which originates from the Kucha language word yape, which means to give more. The Creole version sounds Linyac, L-I-N-Y-A-C, when rolled off the tongues of folks who meet down in New Orleans. That's how the Linyac problem. But it basically says, an example of how Linyac is used down in the bio is like this. When a mother sends a child to the store to make a purchase, the shopkeeper might add a little bit something to the bag at the checkout counter. He might put a little piece of candy in a brown bag or a potato or something, or perhaps he might add a sweet potato or something. When they give you a little something extra, it's called lagniappe, a little something extra. So we can kind of adopt that idea, which comes from the biblical that you were talking about, of giving something back, which has a Judeo-Christian origin of giving something back. Also the idea of tithes, giving something back. Also the idea of a communal, collective, and a cooperative approach that says, go ahead.
Trying to get in here a little bit.
Kick it.
Okay. If you want to go biblical with this, the Creator of life put all of us on this planet amongst one another, not to go against each other, but to help each other out. Running right back into this lagniappe, okay? You got to give back, okay? You know, the real question is, if you believe in the Creator, what have you done for Him lately? And this is, I believe this is what we're trying to do. Do something for the Creator of life, okay? And one another. No one knows everything. Someone knows something more than the next person. But are you willing to share what you know with the next person to help build them up, lift them up, help them stand up, however you want to make, however you want to see it. It's called help. Okay, and I believe that's what the word lagniappe means, giving back to those that are in need of help, and even those that are not in need. They can take what you give to them and give to the next person, because the lagniappe concept is shared amongst one another.
Give more, give back. And the lagniappe concept says the old adage, what you give comes back to you. Is not only true, but why? In other words, I guess I heard the term pay forward, the terminology of this kid, there was a movie, this kid would say, well, if I give something and somebody else gives something that I gave to, it'll keep on going. Eventually, if everybody keeps giving something, it'll come back around if everybody keeps giving something back or keeps giving, you know. So the idea of giving, the idea of the gift is not only biblical, but it's faith-based. So that could be the approach to these organizations that you was just mentioned about how do we say to these groups, when they got money like horse, you know, you need to give back. But within that framework, we need to have a structured thing that they can yay or nay about.
Well, my thing is, even the organizations and the agencies that we're referring to, they didn't get where they're at overnight. Somebody helped them get where they're at. They had to start somewhere, you know, like the numbers, okay, the mathematics. It starts with 0 and goes on. 0 is nothing from nothing, leaves nothing. But when you add 1, okay, 1 is added to 2, and 2 is added to 3, and then now you have numbers, okay? And you get somewhere with them. Okay. Because they add up.
You ever heard of the Harlem Churches for Community Improvement, HCCI?
I heard of it, yeah.
They got a building and a office up on 156th Street and 8th Avenue. I worked with the president who founded it. His name was Washington. There's the New York Baptist Convention, there's the mosque, there's the whatever, there's different kinds of organizations if we're talking about who to target to get the funds. But like anything else, there has to be a reason that they can see on paper to validate why they should give the money and how, who would be benefit in their group. So the challenge is to develop the proposal, and it's not that hard in my opinion, because most of these non-profit organizations already have built in their mandated mission or in their corporate papers the Harlem to do exactly that. HCCI,
I heard of it, yeah.
they got a building and a office up on 156th Street and 8th Avenue. I worked with the president who founded it. His name was Washington. There's the New York Baptist Convention. There's the mosque. There's the whatever. There's different kinds of organizations if we're talking about who to target to get the funds. But like anything else, there has to be a reason that they can see on paper to validate why they should give the money and how, who would be benefit in their group. So the challenge is to develop the proposal, and it's not that hard in my opinion, because most of these non-profit organizations already have built in their mandated mission or in their corporate papers to do exactly that. So we're just saying, how can we help you do what you already said that you want to do? And this proposal or this idea will help you fulfill your mandated mission. Because after the conversation that we give about getting money to build more of this and that and doing more things, somebody got to decide that is it worthwhile? And to who? Is it worthwhile to Nathan Davis to be helped to get a GED? And how do you do that? And what steps, what steps are there to achieve that? So a schedule, curriculum, supported by whatever to get you that is very important in terms of how do you set up that thing for you to get your individual needs met. You to get your individual needs met is what? And your needs are what, Marcos?
Well, my needs are basically, one, since I am a PhD, is to do research and publish the research that I do.
How would that help him?
It would help him by actually allowing the end result of the research to possibly be applied to improve him.
Now, you say might possibly be. How can you make it that it will be, not possibly? Because if it might be possibly, that's maybe not maybe.
The trick is to actually, once the results of the research has been published, convince enough people to actually step outside their comfort zone and apply the results.
So you're saying there needs to be a research paper that targets a person who's dropped out of high school or doesn't have a reading level no more than 7 or 8, that would be geared to help him to get to the high school level and in or college.
It's actually a multi-step problem that has to be solved, because we're talking from bringing him from not having a GED to having a GED, then filling the gap between the GED and college.
Can that be done?
That can be done.
Can you set that up?
That I can with your help.
And his help too, because in the approach to teaching, he teaches me and you how he learns.
Mm-hmm.
He teaches us what he knows. And then we build on what he knows and what he can remember and what he can't remember and help him to get to the phase. So his individual needs is then got to be documented just like the individual needs of the...
You are on such a high level of intellect, okay? So I believe what you need to do is you need to derive a method to be able to come down to where I'm at, okay? And grab a hold of me like I'm grabbing your hand right now and walk me up to where you're at. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yes. But there's also another way to do it, which is to do it in terms of teaching a definition with an example and then building upon that in a recursive manner. And you could gradually build up the complexity using simplicity.
What I'm trying to get across to you is, Dad and I was talking the other day, okay, about the relationship. Okay, if I don't know what the relationship is, then all I'm hearing is blah, 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 blah.
But you remember what we said, multiplication table, and give you a test to multiply numbers. You really haven't learned multiplication. But if I teach you what the definition of multiplication is, and I show you how to apply that definition, you know what multiplication is.
Okay, but what I'm saying to you is, what I know is what you just finished teaching me, the definition.
Hold on. Let me interrupt now. He said that one way is to teach definitions. He didn't give you the definition. He said that is a process on how you do that. So maybe to break it down would be you start off with definitions, period. So then the words that's being spoken have to be defined before you go to the next sentence or the next word. Because definition is a part of the scientific approach where you define what it is, you deal with axioms and postulates. I'm just saying words out there now that he will be able to break down, and you'll be able to break down too. Common notations, and then the last part is what you say that you're saying. But that's a scientific approach in mathematics that needs to be applied to a person who's still in 5th grade reading. So before you teach the process of multiplication, then you have to define what multiplication is.
Right.
Meaning a factor times another factor equals the product. That is the process of multiplication. Rather than teaching by flashcards or memory that 2 and 2 is 4, you show that 2 is a product. The other 2 is a product. But the definition comes first. Product times product factor times factor equals product. Before you even try to teach somebody about multiplication, you teach them the definition of multiplication. And that's what's missing in terms of teaching. You don't define in the beginning. You rely on the person's good memory. And if he don't have a good memory for whatever reason, he totally fucked up. Because he can't remember all that stuff. You do this, you divide this, and put it in there, and you bring down, you do the breakdown. You got to have a definition. And that's where the intellectuals are not able to get down to that defining what you're talking about. What is it and what does it do? What is multiplication and what does multiplication do? Define what multiplication is.
Okay, multiplication is recursive addition.
What is recursive?
Okay, recursive means that you use your current simple result as input to a next step in an algorithm.
What is an algorithm?
An algorithm is a set of rules that
Now,
you use to solve a problem.
Let me break you in right there. You used two terms that you had to define before you went to it by me asking you. You use algorithm, you use definition. And this is not a slap at you. This is a understanding of how the process works. Because remember, the language helps you to be able to define what it is and what does it do. So if you're not saying what it is and what it does, and you get off into the word algorithm and so and so and so and so, the person is hearing blah, 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 blah.
That's what I meant when I was saying about the relationship. Okay? You have to define the relationship in order to be able to bring me to the definition.
Okay? But there's also what's called recursion, which is using...
What is recursion?
Recursion is using a simple result and a simple process that its output of the result of the process is the input to the next step.
You know what I just
you
heard?
Continue
the
loop.
But you know what I just heard? Blah, 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 blah. Because I don't understand none of that.
So that means, let me break in here. In order to make him aware, you would not only have to do a audio talking to him thing, you would need to do a video where he can see the things that you're talking about.
Okay, the words you would use would be the words that would be common to their sense of reality. If you're learning mathematics, you truly don't know it until you start working with, for example, a machine. And the machine shows you the process that I told you about, that repetitive cycle called recursion. Because the machine is very simple. It's an adding machine that does all these simple things plus the complex thing.
What I'm trying to get across is, okay, like for example, let's take our foot, okay, and our toes, okay, they go together, but you have to have the relationship of what each piece does, okay, like if my pinky toe, okay, if my pinky toe has no bone in it, then my balance is off. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. If my big toe has no bone in it, my balance is off, okay? Then they don't work together with the rest of the foot. There's a separation there, but there's a relationship for the reason why they work together.
Yes.
Okay? We have to go piece by piece with the relationship to be able to understand that the foot and the toes go hand in hand with the ankle, with the calf. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but to go back to your example about missing foot off balance, in enough time, like the learning process, your body has its own way to adapt, called plasticity, where it compensates for the off balance after a while, where you walk in balance.
And see,
despite
what's so beautiful about this dialogue and this conversation, when we play it back, the things that we're talking about, you're going to hear how you do what you're doing. And you're going to hear how you do what you're doing. Because it always gets into the instructor saying something that's possibly ill-defined because there's no definition with the word. They're not defining it. they're using the word within the context, expecting the people that they're speaking to understand it. Mathematics is the only language that's used by the entire human race. Would you agree?
As far as we know currently, however, there are some indications that it might be a universal used by all life forms throughout the cosmos.
And this universal, what would it be called?
Mathematics.
Again, it's a language.
Right.
It's a language that's spoken. True.
To some degree. You don't exactly speak an integral differential equation.
Oh, yes, you do. You just said an integral differential equation, so you're speaking a language.
I'm speaking a language, but if I were to put an example of one, you can't verbalize it because it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so
you have to see it.
Okay, so dig it. Hear what you just said?
Okay,
you have
now,
to see it.
Relationship
You have to
between
see
you seeing it and you saying it. Did you hear that?
Yes.
The relationship between you seeing it and you saying it.
And
If you,
that's
if
the
you
key
see
to-
it, you have to say what you see. If you're saying it, you have to be able to identify with what you're saying. The
in the mind's eye,
and mind's eye.
or in
Exactly.
the paper eye, and I think that's where people who learn go to a level where they don't really understand, and the same way with people who don't learn the language, whether it's mathematics, English, whatever the language is. The language has a context within it. It's used for a certain purpose. It's indigenous to a group of people because once you go, it deals with symbols and signs. It deals with definitions. It deals with
concepts.
All right.
Like,
now,
like
now
for
imagine
example,
you sitting
and
down with him.
You and I were talking earlier before Dad got down here, okay? And we were talking about how you came up, the different things that you were doing, that your parents agreed and disagreed with, okay? You told me you stayed in trouble because you had to think about taking things apart, okay? Now, you had the capability of being able to put it back together because the way, when you took it apart, the way you laid it out. Parents didn't know that you had the capability of being able to do that, okay? So you got in trouble, okay? But you were able to put these things together. You were able to put these things together because of the relationship between your mother and your father, and then came you. Mama was good when it comes down to mathematics. Isn't that what you said to me earlier?
Yes.
Papa was able to put things together and work with his hands and his mind. Didn't have the education that he needed, but he had the gift that God gave him. The relationship between the two, the outcome of the relationship between the two was you. At 25 years old, you were instructing Merrill Lynch on how to run their company. Okay? That's a gift. Okay?
Back to Lignac.
Exactly. So now, at 25, from 1 to 25, you accumulated a whole bunch of stuff. You accumulated feats that people said that you could not. How did you get the help? From mama and from daddy. And what they created, the relationship between the two, which formed itself within inside of you, Marco. Okay? So when they said you couldn't do, that drive that mama and daddy gave you, and the gifts that they gave you from between the two, you proved everybody wrong. Because they said that you would not be able to have a decent education. Okay? But you're
So
Dr. Marco.
What was
Bitetto.
inside of you that was driving you? You laugh.
That was a basic knowledge that I was able to do things that I set out to do because I did similar things in the past.
So it wasn't really anything except no one was teaching you. You was able to learn from the things, you was able to bring to memory the things that you knew or that was taught to you.
Correct.
So that teaching was a style not to help you remember, because you couldn't remember everything, but the style was to help you to remember the things by doing the things and tying up and the belief that it could happen.
I hear it now, even in his voice when he knows something that nobody else knows. Okay, and he gets that laugh. Okay, yeah, see that look in his eye? There it go right there. He gets that laugh. I'm doing something nobody else does or can do. Because going back, and this is just me, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not, okay? Going back, having the challenge to accomplish something from within inside of yourself, when everybody around you, that's outside of mommy and daddy, is saying you can't do it.
And
that drive,
and they inspired you
inside yourself. Once you accomplish
all those other things, relationships are the most important things, whether it be mathematics or whether it be
I love you, bro.
Whether it be mathematics, whether it be English, or whether it be so. What we're talking about here is developing that process that a person can go from 4th or 5th grade with the belief that I can do it because somebody is saying you can do it and this is how you can do it and these are the tools that you need to help you to do it.
And I got to say this because, you know, one of the things we do when we come together, we keep everything real, you know. It was always a light burning inside of me because my moms and them always told me that I can accomplish anything I want to accomplish. You know, there's nothing I can't do. Okay, people and their lack of understanding of one another, okay, put me down, okay, and tore down my confidence.
Who did?
People that I was around, because of lack of understanding of one another, lack of care and concern. So it tore me down, my spirit, my soul.
You got people that were close to you?
I learned, yeah. But
family members?
Family members, friends, so-called friends.
Okay. Why do you think they stigmatized you?
Because
you wasn't like them? All right now. Because you wasn't like them?
Because I wasn't like them. Exactly.
And how were you different?
I don't believe in taking from one another. I don't believe a man should go and beat another man upside the head and take what he got. You know, if he got more than what you got, ask him how he got it. You know what I mean? If he's a real human being, he'll share that. Like Marco. Okay? I long for the knowledge that this man has in his head. Okay? But I know I have the capability to be able to get there. He did it. God said He created all of us the same. None of us are better than the next one. Okay? And I was taught that as a kid. And that fire kept burning inside of me. But I gotta say, and I kept doing things, and God kept allowing me to do things. The day that I met you, Mr. John Crocker, okay, was the beginning of my stuff. Because you said to me that day, anyone given the opportunity can learn and go as far as they possibly can go. And that stuck with me. Because that light that was burning inside of me, it made it even brighter.
Okay, let me.
I met Marco. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this man damn near put his face on the table to read. But he got a doctor before his name. That's a feat. That's an accomplishment.
That needs to be told,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
needs to be highlighted and amplified, because he's been used and misused by most of the
Like
people.
all of us. And
like-
that's why we're here talking today.
Right. And let me read something to you about lifelong learning, which is the broader thing that we're talking about as far as I'm concerned. Lifelong learning is a concept. It's never too late nor never too soon for learning. A philosophy that has taken roots in a whole host of different organizations. Lifelong learning is attitudinal, that one can and should be open to new ideas, decisions, skills, or behavior. You can't teach an old dog new tricks out the door. Lifelong learning sees citizens provided with learning opportunities at all ages and numerous contexts at work, at home, through leisure activities, not just through formal channels such as what lifelong education is. Lifelong education is a form of pedagogy, often accomplished through distant learning or e-learning, continuing education, homeschooling, or correspondence course. It also includes postgraduate programs for those who want to improve their qualification, bringing their skills up to date, or retain for a new line of work. Internal corporate training has similar goals. In later life, especially in retirement, continuing learning takes diverse forms, crossing traditional academic bonds and including recreational activities.
It's actually the lattice work that you pin the learning on. Let me give you an example.
But I'm reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is the relationship.
But the relationship you're mentioning isn't quite there. Education is the process by which you learn. And it's a learning process that isn't done in a university, it's not done in a classroom, it's done by you learning how to teach yourself.
Okay, and at the same
I'm
time,
not trying to
Well,
okay, go ahead. Education.
what it means is that you ascend beyond and are able to teach yourself because you know how to teach yourself. Education is supposed to be teaching you how to teach yourself, not to go to a classroom to learn. That's not learning through education.
That's deep.
Are we serious or what?
And I understand where you're coming from, okay, because I'm teaching myself too. Even Dad said to me in the beginning, most of the stuff that I know, I taught myself, okay? You know, so I can understand. I long to get to where you're at, you know, but you got to be lonely where you're at, Marco. I got to say that. You got to be lonely because very few people are up there where you're at.
There are people that are up where I'm at, that it's a rarefied environment, yes. However, the people that are up where I'm at are generally not available for socialization.
Exactly why I said you
How do
must
we
be
get
lonely.
them to be available?
And that's your challenge.
How do we
because
get
you
them?
got to come down from where
No.
you're at.
How do we get them to be? You say they're not there. How do we get them to come down?
You have to find out what their interests are and mold what you want towards their interest. It's sort of like fishing. You have to put bait on the hook.
So it's
to
sort
get
of
the
like
fish.
what we're trying to do. Okay. You're up there where you're at. And I'm not knocking you at all. I long to get up there. Okay. But you got to come down to where I'm at. And you got to take what You got to
No,
take.
he ain't got to come down where you are. He might need to show you the tools to help you to get to another level.
No, and I'm in agreement with that, Dad. I'm saying in order for him to be able to do that, he got to come down there where I'm at.
You keep saying come down. I'm saying provide you with the tools.
My purpose is to teach a student that doesn't know how to teach themselves. See, when I did my doctoral research, I learned how to teach myself.
So what's the process of teaching yourself?
The process is to, first of all, understand that knowledge occurs through three basic aspects: acquisition, acquiring information, integrating information with your experience, and then application of what you've integrated to solve problems. That's basically the whole education process in a nutshell.
Now imagine if we wasn't recording this to be able to go back and say those words, they would be just blah, blah, blah. But now we have the words. He said application, so and so and so. I couldn't even write them that fast, but them words is on that tape.
And what
That
I
we could-
was saying earlier was, I might have been using the wrong word. When I say come down, I don't mean forget about what you've learned. That's not what I'm saying. Okay? You have to be able to look and see. Just like you learned how to teach yourself, okay, you have to be able to look at the next person and see where they're at.
But it's
So
not
you can teach them. That's what I mean when I say come down.
Go ahead.
But it-
Okay.
Where they're at.
Go ahead.
okay. It's not only get the person that is at a lower level of knowledge. The trick is to get them from that lower level to understand the process to get to the higher level. And this process is self-initiated.
Okay.
No one can do it for you.
You said, but you said the trick, and you use trick a lot. If there's a trick, then it has application.
Acquisition, which means you acquire, you take in.
Okay. Then it has to be.
Integrated.
Mhm.
Then it has to be applied to solve a problem. Because if you can't apply
So it's
what
basic-
you've acquired and you've integrated, you really have not learned.
So basically you're saying it's basic soul searching.
No.
Well, I'm saying when you introspect with yourself.
No. You're misinterpreting. You're going into trying to interpret it as being metaphysical. This isn't metaphysical. This is
What's
mechanical.
metaphysical? What's metaphysical?
Metaphysical is when you're dealing with essences beyond. We're not dealing with
Essences beyond the body
Right,
is metaphysical.
right.
So you're saying teaching, it should be not metaphysical.
It's a mechanical process.
Okay, then the challenge then is to develop the mechanical process to give to the person on a step-by-step thing. That's where the educational process lacks its ability to develop that thing that helps the person do the step-by-step. What they've developed,
If you don't see the language or the relationship
or the definitions of what
or the definitions, then all you're hearing is blah, 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 blah.
But the thing that you're still not acquiring. Education is, think of it this way. When you build a house, you lay the foundation and you build the frame. Education is building the foundation and the frame. Knowledge is the house once it's built, brick by brick, which each brick is acquired information that gets incorporated into the structure of the house.
Hey, baby. Is we kicking it or what? Show no. And the beautiful part about it, it's being recorded. It ain't just philosophically blah, 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 because we have the opportunity to hear a point of view about education.
But see, this brings me back to what Marco said earlier about, and I can't get away from it, self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
To self-teach, you had to go in with
the
itself.
language, because the language you develop as you develop knowledge. It's a process.
So,
And
in short, then, we would have to be able to develop the process.
Right. And the process is a mechanical process.
Whatever way it is, a process has to be developed that the understanding, definition, clarification, it comes before the rote memory.
The understanding and the clarification has to come way before anyone attempts to apply. And the worst method to try to integrate is to memorize, because memorization is faulty. When you put under stress, many times you forget things. Like if I put you that you already graduate from your bachelor's degree and you want to go to a master's, you have to take what's called the GRE, which is a graduate exam that you take before you enter graduate school. Now on that, they time you. Now if you're timed, you're not going to be able to extract from memory all the various permutations, which are the various combinations of answers that could solve each and every one of those 1,600 problems that you only have an hour to solve.
So how does some do it and some don't do it?
The ones that do it by a statistical process of elimination.